Assalamu'alaykum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. We are blessed to continue with our study. Inshallah, we start off with the intentions for seeking knowledge and teaching. I intend to seek knowledge and to teach to benefit myself and to benefit others, to remind myself and to remind others, to profit myself and to profit others, to urge adherence to the book of Allah and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to invite to guidance and to guide to that which is good, seeking the face of Allah, His pleasure, His closeness, His reward, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's continue on with our Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم ارزقنا يا ربي فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافيتي يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين وفقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل واهدنا إلى سواء السبيل اللهم انفعنا وارفعنا وعرفنا بالعلم النافع وانفعنا به أنفسنا وأهلنا وأوطاننا وديارنا وجميع المسلمين يا إله العالمين الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي الحمد لله. Still with our legacy, and with saviors of Islamic spirit, we have Khawaja Nizamuddin Awliya. Not Nizamuddin, actually. This is a introduction. Khawaja Bakhtiar Kaki. Born in the town of Aush, Khawaja Bakhtiar Kaki became an orphan at the tender age of 1.5 years. Very young. Huh? His mother took special care for his education and got him admitted in a primary school at the age of 5, where he received education from Maulana Abu Hafs Aushi. Right, so this is initial story of him. Right, so you can see his mother, quite a number actually of the scholars have lost their father at a very early age, and their mother was instrumental in ensuring that the children get a good education. After completing his education at Aush Kutubuddin took the road to Baghdad, where his fate brought him in contact with that pure-hearted soul who helped him to attain the highest form of spiritual existence and then radiate those luminous qualities in Hindustan. So here we understand is that his name is, they call him Kutubuddin. He went to Baghdad. Baghdad was the center of learning, and he met his spiritual teacher who brought him and taught him or gave him directions. Actually, this is always normally instructions and guidance. They guide them to purify their heart and their mind and their soul. So once you are purified, then your spirituality will increase, and then you would be able to help lots of others in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was endowed the rope of spiritual succession of the Chistiya order by Khawaja Moinuddin in the sacred mosque of Faqih Abu La'id Samarkandi in the presence of a large number of religious doctors and celebrated saints. So normally you need to be initiated or to be given that to be elected to be a successor, and you must have a teacher who would have been with you for some time and would know that you are capable to be the successor. So you have to go through certain very strict practices, strict training before you can actually be made a successor. So he was trained and he was then elected to be a successor. He was in Samarkandi, that would be somewhere, I think, Kazakhstan area, Central Asia, and then you can see that it was a witnessing there was witnesses around to see the succession of spiritual succession. He directed his course to India at the bidding of his mentor and stayed over at Delhi, capital of the nascent Islamic state in that country. So here we see that he was appointed to be in India. This one is India. Hindustan, not Hindustani movie, India. So his mentor, that means his teacher, was the one who asked him to go to. He was sent to India to bring the spiritual knowledge, Islamic knowledge, to the people of India. The royal court at Delhi was at the time filled with poets, artists, and scholars from many lands, attracted by the Sultan's generosity, and also men of arts and learning drawn from the realms overrun by Genghis Khan and the successors. And we saw this in our last lesson, that many of these people of great skills and caliber and knowledge, right, had taken asylum in India because of the established Islamic power there, and also because of the kindness of the Sultan, of the king there. This is because they were overrun by the Tatars. I remember the Tatars, how savage they were actually. This new metropolis of India had thus rapidly gathered the cream of talent from the entire world of Islam. And so we also realized that this was what happened, how all these great scholars from all parts, from the parts of Islam that were attacked, they ran to India. Khawaja Qutbuddin was held in veneration by Sultan Iltutmish, but he persistently refused to have anything to do with the royal court and rejected all offers of a fief or a grant from the king. Here we know that the kings of India at that time, they have great respect for ulama, for religious people, and they honored Khawaja Qutbuddin, and he didn't want to be part of the royal court, and he doesn't want to have money or whatever from the king. First in Kilokri and then near the mosque of Malik Izzuddin, he continued to live like a mendicant, although Sultan Iltutmish continued to pay occasional visits to him. Despite the king visiting him, he prefers to live a life of poverty rather than having lots of luxurious things around him, which he could. The king has offered to pay him, but he didn't accept payment. He became so popular among the masses that once when Khawaja Moinuddin was his teacher, came to Delhi to see his disciple, the then Sheikhul Islam Najmuddin Surah made a complaint to the Khawaja. Thereupon the Khawaja said to his disciple, Baba Bakhtiar, so soon have you gained eminence that the slaves of Allah has begun complaining against you. All right, so this is this is the head of the Islamic world, right? It's like a mufti kind of person lah. And he was just talking about this Qutbuddin being very, very popular and people are going after him. And so the teacher says that maybe you should just leave the place because people are complaining again. No, it says you are very fast, you are become popular. And when you are popular, there'll be always others who are not very happy with the way you do things. Or, maybe there's a little bit of envy here and there, Allahu Alam. Or they felt that people shouldn't be going after you so much. Because the Indians especially, they have a tendency to go after very religious people. And of course, it's not wrong to go after religious people. They believe in the barakah of the religious people. And it is also true that these religious people, when they reach certain heights where they are, as Rasulullah SAW has said in a hadith, that when a person does all the wajib acts and add on to the sunnah acts, and tries to get as close to Allah, to be true slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever he asks, Allah gives. And so people would go over to them, and people see them as Muslims, layperson Muslims see them as a person of great blessing, because you are blessed with that position or that station of coming or being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As they say, people who are able to wake up for tahajjud, they are people invited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they are special in that sense, that they have barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they want to share with common people who feel that they are not as good, or they can't attain that kind of station. They like to get the blessings of all this of these religious people, the pious ones. Leave this place and come to Ajmer. There I will be at your service. So his teacher actually told him to go to Ajmer with him. He will be there to look after him and to care for him. The Shaykh had said that what could be expected of a man who had attained the summit of spiritual perfection. He did not like his disciple to be the cause of anxious concern to anyone, and not the least to the Shaykh al-Islam of the Islamic State. So he actually listened to the Shaykh al-Islam of India and saw that there was a lot of anxiety with the Shaykh al-Islam, and he doesn't like that his disciple to be the cause of the anxiety. It also hinted that if the people at Delhi were not aware of the stature and spirituality of Khawaja Bakhtiar Kaki, he knew it very well and could accord him the highest marks of respect. All right, so names. So he felt that if people don't understand, then he should just go to somewhere where people would appreciate him for what he is. The appreciation is different. Understanding the reality of that person, being of pure heart, pure mind, pure soul, always having a state of ibadah, calling people to Islam, bringing lots of people down to Islam. These are the states that they were in. Khawaja Kutubuddin gave the reply expected of him, my lord, what of sitting in your presence, I hardly deserve to stand before you. So this is Kutubuddin. This is, we saw this Bakhtiar Kaki was also one of the disciples of Moinuddin. So he says that he's humble. This is a way of saying it humbly. What of sitting in your presence, I don't even deserve to stand. I don't even deserve to stand in your presence. What more sit in your presence? So that is a reply to show he's a very humble person. He realized that what he has is nothing compared to what his teacher has. The mentor asked aside the disciple to accompany him to Ajmer, and the disciple nodded his assent without a demur. All right, that means he agreed instantly. He never objects to his teacher. And that is, of course, teacher-student relationship, where you have great respect for a teacher and you believe, and of course, this is a spiritual teacher, and you believe a teacher has got lots of wisdom in wanting you to leave Delhi. But no sooner had the two come out of the city, it dawned upon the Shaykh that the popularity of his disciple was by the will of Allah. Khawaja Kutubuddin started on his journey to Ajmer in the company of his Shaykh, records and analysts, but the news of his departure raised a clamor in the city. So while they were going out, and the teacher realized that the popularity was given to his student by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is, he has to face a test of the popularity, and he should learn how to manage the popularity. At the same time, as they were leaving Delhi, every people who heard of their departure came out and were very, very upset that he is leaving. The whole of his population, along with Sultan Iltutmish, came out of the capital to follow his steps, wailing and lamenting over his departure. But they felt that such a person of great spirituality leaving their city would mean a loss of barakah, which they are not willing to part with. Khawaja Moinuddin did not consider it prudent to plunge into sorrow such a vast multitude for the sake of one man. So he was doing this. He wanted to bring his student out of Delhi because of the complaint of the Shaykh al-Islam. And now coming to realize that this position given to this popularity given to Qutbuddin was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and many would be so upset because of him leaving. So he felt that no, he should not do this because because of one man. He allowed Khawaja Qutbuddin to return to Delhi and remarked, Baba Bakhtiar, you better remain here. So Baba is a nice word. The Indians, they always use that to show love for a younger person. So his name was Bakhtiar, but it's called Qutbuddin. Qutub means the Qutub is like the pole. Qutub actually pole. Pole, that means the of religion. That such a large number of people are sorrow-stricken at your departure, I do not consider it proper to rend their hearts. So he felt that it's not right to make so many people sad, right? And by leaving Delhi. So go back, I leave the city in your charge. So the Iltutmish thanked the Shaykh for allowing Khawaja Qutbuddin to remain at Delhi. Back in Delhi, Khawaja Qutbuddin again took up his austere living and the task of diffusing the spirit of humanity among his followers and devotees. So he continues teaching them, training them, enlightening them, giving them that sense of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think that is what is lacking now. Yeah, we do learn, a lot of people learn religion, but they don't seem to have that kind of love and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so much so that they would want to spend time in the morning reciting the various zikrs that Rasulullah had taught them, evening to recite the zikrs, to read the Quran, and those who are not able to put in effort to learn to read the Quran. There's so many avenues nowadays for us to learn to read the Quran, all online or offline, whatever it is. I heard there was an ustad also learning to, he called it, I remember there's a word he used it, that means slow steps to learning the Quran. So and Hamza Yusuf, when I was listening to him, to him, there is no such thing, no excuse for a Muslim not to read one juz Quran a day. It's in one juz. Of course, when you're fluent, you can do it in half an hour, which is not very easy for most of us now. Half an hour. So he says half an hour a day, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. You can't spend that for your Quran, for your Allah, is it? Hamza Yusuf said. All right. So this is when I actually changed my position in people memorizing the Quran, because I realized that those who memorize the Quran, initially I went in my younger days, I thought maybe it's better for people to understand the Quran rather than only to memorize the Quran without understanding. But as I grow older, I realized the importance of reading the Quran daily. And the people who memorize the Quran, they actually, because they are able to memorize the Quran, they can read it faster because they are very fluent with the Quran. Some of us who have been reading Yasin for years, Alhamdulillah, we might just take 5 minutes to read Yasin. Those who are starting off Yasin, right, might even take half an hour to read Yasin, or even 20 minutes, right? But much more than 5 minutes, definitely. Those who are used to reading Kafi on Fridays, it'll take them less than 20 minutes, 17 minutes to read Kafi, which is 110 verses, which is about half a surah. But because they are fluent with it, they take about 12-13 minutes to read Surah Kafi. But those who are not, right, they will take about 1.5 hours to read it. So it's really good with our children, with ourselves also, to have a certain ibadah, certain program for ourselves, so that we get connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what these scholars are doing. This sheikh, they call them the sheikh are teachers, right, who guides and who brings students through a path, and the path is through zikir, through du'as, through prayers, night prayers, tahajjud, Quran reading, and such. So it enlightens the heart. And of course, they also go through training in helping the poor, in being with the poor, in doing works which people would use as menial tasks, but these people are all there to do it. In fact, in the hadith which mentioned about Rasulullah SAW helping his wives, so we know Rasulullah SAW did housework to help his wives, although maybe the housework is not as much as now. But whatever the case is, he like mending clothes and washing clothes and maybe washing dishes and maybe cooking or something like that. The Arabic word used was the word menial task. Right? Tasks which people might not want to do. Not everybody would like to do those kind of tasks. And it's very important for us to go down and to do this kind of work. He never had anything to do with the royal court. So that is how he was. And although the king was really honored him and wanted to give him a lot, he doesn't want to get involved with him. As an earnest seeker of truth, he had renounced all worldly wealth and earthly desires, but the people still flocked to him as if the whole world, all the notables of rank and authority, deem it an honor to pay respect to him, despite the fact that he's not rich, right? He doesn't want to hold power, he doesn't want to hold position, right? And he doesn't have much, he doesn't go for much desires. People still come to him. Why? Because they see him as a great blessing on earth. Because of the fact that he is blessed with purity of heart, purity of mind, and as mentioned, lots of amal salih. Sultan Shamsuddin il-Tatmush, that's what his name was, Shamsuddin, used to call upon him twice a week. Delhi was then not only the capital of the Sultanate, but was also the emerging stronghold of Islam in the country recently brought under its realm, where many a sagacious mind of the then Islamic world had gathered. So there were lots of people of very, very high caliber in Delhi. It was no easy task to provide spiritual guidance to all and also to exert a moderating influence over an otherwise autocratic form of government. So he had this task of bringing spiritual guidance to the various officials of the government. And of course, not everyone is inclined to attain spirituality, especially when they are expected to denounce certain luxuries of life, right? So trying to have a moderating influence also wasn't easy because they are autocratic. They are people of high position and status. Although Khawaja Bakhtiar Kaki did not live long enough to complete a difficult task entrusted to his care, for he remained alive only 4 or 5 years after the death of his spiritual guide. He discharged his responsibility with supreme success and also established the Chishtiya order in India on a firm footing for all times to come. Yes, I'm supposed to look into the Chishtiya order, inshallah. I missed that out. But basically, it is I did read up a little bit about it, right? And it is started off in Iran, I think, or Iraq, where they come together to help people to go through to have certain practices. It's always a practice of zikrs, and the zikrs will come from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has like a lot of zikr for mornings, a lot of zikrs for evenings, and many scholars through the years, through the ages, has selected the most critical one because they realize that not everyone can practice every single thing that the Prophet ﷺ has taught, right? That the Khulasa is really a thick book, but those who are familiar with reciting it, it would actually take just half an hour every morning just to read the Khulasa. But then again, you need a guide to help you through, right? So that you know how to manage various challenges along the way, right, with your zikrs. So like we have Imam Al-Haddad, he's got his Ratib Al-Haddad, we've got Al-Attas, Ratib Al-Attas, that one is practiced in Masjid Ba'lawi, they do that with zikrs. And they will give you a bay'ah. Bay'ah means you are given they have authorized you and given you the permission to continue with the call it the wirid, and the wirid, aurat, we talk about the aurat is plural of wirid. So and this is what a Chishtiya order, they have their own specific readings of the zikrs, mornings and evenings. So that is basically it. And then they would have some training on self-purification. He was about 50 years of age when the all-consuming flame of the love of Allah, which he had kept subdued in his frail bodily frame for the edification of surrounding humanity, burst forth in ecstatic trances and transports. So at the age of 50, he actually went into states of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he gets absorbed into the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are not something unfamiliar to in Islam. We have narrations of sahabas of Rasulullah sallam, who, when they are in salat, they are completely out of the world. So we call it trances. It's not nice to call it the word trance, but there's no other word to actually describe those states, right? Because sometimes we use the word trances, people say, oh, the bobo goes into a trance, that kind of thing, but it's not a good trance where, some spirit gets into your body or whatever. But in this case, they call it ecstatic. Maybe they try to explain it or to modify the trances into saying it is ecstatic. Right? That means they get lost in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Transports means they are transported, right, from this world into a different realm. Right now, we have this hadith and this of Rasulullah, some stories of the Sahabas, right? There's one Sahaba who had a spear, right, shot into his leg, and when they tried to remove the spear, he was in terrible pain, and he told his Sahabas. Some say it's Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, Allahu a'lam bisawab. Basically, it was a Sahaba that he would go into his salat, and while he is doing his sujud, pull it out. So with these people, when they go into their salat, they really go into the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why Hamza Yusuf also believed that when Sayyidina Bilal radiallahu anhu, in his prayer, he was so engrossed in his praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he says, Sami Allahu liman hamida, right, the one, Sami Allah, Allah hears whoever praises him. So in that state of realizing that Allah hears whoever praises him, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. So we continue to say, Rabbana, our Rabb, to you is all praises, wa lakal hamd. Then he added on, Hamza, Imam Bilal, the Sahaba of Rasul, hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi. So at that point, Rasulullah SAW, after the salat, Rasulullah says, who said that? Hamdan kathiran. Hamdan means lots and lots and lots. Unbounded praises. Hamdan kathiran, lots and lots, kathiran. Right? Hamdan kathiran mubarakan fi. And lots of blessings in it. So he was so overwhelmed with his state in his salat that he just goes on saying all that. Hamdan kathiran mubarakan fi. Let's mention the Sahaba who had the spear in his foot. They pull it out and he didn't feel a single thing at all because he was too engrossed in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is said that when a person is truly in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means when they raise their hand and say Allahu Akbar, they really cut off themselves from the world and they are in the presence of Allah. That is called ecstatic trances, where they actually, are no more in the world. They are transported. In fact, it is said that some of the wali Allah, when they are in their salat, they are transported to the arash of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are not in this world anymore. They don't hear anything at all. There are many stories of such wali Allah in their salat, where they get beautiful, feeling beautiful. It's called ecstasy. He was often seen in a state of total absorption and elevation produced by the divine illumination of his heart. When the day came when he heard in the chamber of Sheikh Ali Sekizi, a singer reciting the following couplet. So again, he goes into these states, right, of complete absorption in the in Allah's powers and Allah's might and Allah's glory, right? And this is called divine illumination of the heart, and that is true, and he is elevated because of his purification of the heart. Whatever he does is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is done for himself. He is not interested in anything. The world is there. Yes, the world is important for him to go on getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is not attached to the world. Ungrudging who are in resignation and submission. A new life they get ever and anon. He fell into ecstatic trance, returned to his place after some time, but remained attracted to the same condition. So this is the two couplet. This is a couplet means two verses, right? So ungrudging, those who are resigned, who submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they do not grudge the state of being submitting to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to resign to the fate that they are in, right? That means to give up everything. This is to resignation. This is not to resign from the job, right? It is a resignation and submission. That means you are in a state of complete contentment with whatever Allah has given you. So they don't grudge anymore. They don't grudge, I got to pray 5 times a day. Asar, I'm so busy. That's all. It's called grudging, finding, not happy, like always complaining, right? There was a story of a man who always complains after he was with his wife, after he was together with his wife, he has to bathe the compulsory bath. And he grudged and go, why must we bathe all the time after this? Why don't we be like the Christians who doesn't have to bathe? Right? And it's said that there's a story, right? I can't really remember the exact story, but there was somebody went to see his son after he passed on, and told his son that he had a dream, right, that he should dig up the grave of his father. And then when they dug up the grave of the father, they found somebody else, another body in that. And the man said, yeah, I dreamt that this person whom I know was a Christian and buried as a Christian was actually sent to be buried to your father's grave. So the son gets very upset. How come my father is not here, but somebody else who was a Christian was buried there? It seems that he was not a Christian. He became a Muslim, and he was a true devout Muslim. But people insist that he should be buried as a Christian. So they went to the son went to ask the mother, because from what he knew, the father was a very religious person. What happened to the father? So the mother says, well, your father, every time he comes to me, he would complain about the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so then where is the father's body? So the man who wanted to see the body in the grave told him to go back to the Christian's grave, and then they found their father's body. Wallahu alam bisawab, right? These are stories that we hear, right, of awliyas and such. And but that is very important. Faith is really important. Like, faith is really important. That is why if we look at the sirah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first 11 years, the first 13 years, it is all about developing faith. So that, and we are aware also that the rulings like praying of 5 times a day was not there until 10 years of Rasulullah's mission. Because once the faith is there, prayer is no problem. And then fasting of 1 month, Ramadan was never there until Rasulullah was in Medina. There's 13 years of people not fasting in Ramadan. The Muslims were Muslims, 13 years of being Muslims, but not fasting. But fasting became easy for them. So the rulings came mainly in Medina. And there was not much real ruling, the real rulings that we have right now. Well, when the people were in Mecca. So Mecca was a moment of developing the faith in the people. So once you have that strong desire to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, You don't grudge anymore, because he's your God. And he will, whatever he asks you to do is for your good. He creates you, he knows what's good for you. And we are created to be slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says a new life they get, because those who really truly submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lives a special life, a different life from what they used to live. And that is why the Sahabas of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were overjoyed. They were overjoyed with being Muslims. And that is why when they pray, they cry, because for years they have never experienced the joy of ruku, the joy of sujud, the joy of standing in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are great joys. And you feel honored that you are blessed with doing all these things. It's a different life altogether. A life of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A new life they get ever and anon. Now, I'm not really sure the meaning of anon here. Anybody can look out for me the meaning of anon, and then maybe we can look at this two couplet and how it affected him. So he fell into ecstatic trance. By listening to it, he just gets absorbed in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and returned to his place after some time, but remained attracted to the same condition. That means he is absorbed. He is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He desired the same couplet to be repeated again and again until 4 days passed in the same condition. So this couplet affected him so much, makes him realize the joys that he had by submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by being content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what we call nafsul mutma'innah. And nafsul mutma'innah is the soul that is content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he's happy, whatever Allah asks him to do, he's just happy, he just submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes people nowadays, they find it very, some women maybe, they find it very degrading to be submitting to the husband. But some women, on the other hand, they feel happy submitting to their husband, because they know that Rasulullah has encouraged, or has in fact instructed women, right, to be good to their husband, to be faithful to their husband, to care for their husband, to be loving, to be to listen and obey their husband. Sometimes in this world of feminism, the word to obey husband is some kind like a taboo, right? But those who understands, right, they actually find joy in doing all those things. So these are moments of feelings that not many can actually understand, unless you are able to absorb or believe and resign to the instructions, submit to the instructions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which of course comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In between, when the time for prayer arrived, he would perform the observance, but would again relapse to the same state of ecstasy and rapturous trance as soon as the couplet was recited before him, right? We see this in Jalaluddin Rumi. Also, he goes into those states where he gets very close to Allah subhanahu. He feels the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the 5th night, in the same condition, he preferred the deeper privacy of the grave. Well, this is also not something unusual. It seems that Nabi Yahya alayhi salam also, Nabi Yahya alayhi salam sometimes just like to have a grave dug for him, and he said to sit in the grave. And in that moment, he feels the reality of life. One day he's going to die, he's going to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they actually do that. This is what they have happened in the year 633 after Hijrah. While returning from Edgar is actually 8 prayers, to his residence a few days before his death, the Khawaja happened to pass through an open ground. He remained standing at the place for quite some time until a companion accompanying him politely reminded, "It's it today, and a large number of people will be waiting your return." He replied, "I find the odor of hearts emitting here." So he's feeling certain things, right, from that area where he was standing. Later, he called for the owner of the land and purchased the field for his burial place. This is the place where his grave exists till today. So these are people who know when they're going to die. They know where they're going to be buried. They want to be buried at a certain place, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This incident remind me of my great grandfather who loves his mother so much that when mother passed on, he actually dug a grave for himself beside his mother, and he covered it up. And only certain people know that the grave was empty, that it's an empty grave, like a special grave beside his mother. Last time we can do that. It's like near the Malabar Mosque, behind the Malabar Mosque, there's a graveyard there. So when he passed on, my great grandfather, those who know actually said, when in fact the guard, the keeper of the grave, I said that this grave is empty, reserved for him. So he was buried beside his mother. Well, that's people who are high up. Khawaja Qutbuddin had conferred the habit of succession to 9 or 10 of his disciples, but his chief successor, who devoted himself wholeheartedly to the completion of the task undertaken by him, was Khawaja Fariduddin Ganshakar. So we're going to go through Fariduddin Ganshakar and the efforts that he did to help and the kind of things that he did. All right, so we finish one awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how he leads his life, how he goes into the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to be there also, you need to have guide. You have to have a guide to guide you through in states of ecstasy and transport. All right, we go on to Al-Wafi, a thorough commentary on the 40 Nawawiyah. We did Hadith 20 last lesson, Al-Haya Minal Iman. Shame is of Iman. Haya can be shyness, shame. An Abi Mas'ud Uqbat ibn Amrin al-Ansari al-Badri radiallahu anhu. These are his titles. He's an Ansari, he's a Badri, right? He's from Ansar, he's of the people from Medina, and he is people who are in Badr. Qala, he says like people have medals, you know, so these are the medals. Qala, he said, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, inna mimma adraka nasu min kalamin nubuwatil ula. Surely of that which is explained to, or which is known to men of the words of the prophets, the early prophets, is that idha lam tastahi, when not you have shame, fasna, then do ma shita, whatever you wish. Rawahul Bukhari. So he's talking about shame here. Shame is the foundation of noble manners, the strongest motive for doing good and avoiding evil. If you have shame, it will allow you to do good. What kind of shame did we have explained? Being ashamed not to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're ashamed of not doing things which Allah wants you to do. So, because you are ashamed not to do good, ashamed that you are sin not doing good, you go on doing good. And of course, you are ashamed to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you avoid evil. And that is part of the legacies of all the prophets. The hadith means if you do not have any shame, do what you want and Allah will punish you for it most severely. Or it means whoever has no shame, let him take a seat in the fire. So it is a warning, right? If you have no shame, then it becomes permissible for you to do whatever you want to do because you have no shame. So you see it as okay to do everything which was not permissible, but to you is okay because you have no shame. If you have shame, you would want to do good. If you have no shame, you don't feel anything in not doing good. If you have no shame, you don't feel anything in doing evil. So the shame allows you, not having shame allows you or gives you a justification to avoid good and to do evil. So that is a problem. So be careful of not having shame. Natural shame is present without being taught. Some people just have that sense, that shyness in them without being taught. Like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even in the early years before he became a prophet, yeah, he is very shy about showing parts of his body. We have an incident in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he in his teenage, or maybe it was adulthood, right? He was walking. He was together helping to rebuild the Kaaba, so putting the stones of the Kaaba, to rebuild the Kaaba. So they were carrying stones on their shoulder, and one of his Sahaba friends told him, at that time we don't call him Sahabas of Rasulullah, he was not a prophet then, right? Told him to actually raise his sarong kind of thing, his kain, and put it on the shoulder as a pad, and put the stone on it. So when you pull your skirt up, or not skirt, your thigh up, right, your thighs are exposed. And he just couldn't take it that his thighs are exposed, right? And he fainted. that sense. And it is said that Rasulullah is much more shy, right? People, yeah. So that's natural, eh? The shame is acquired through revelation. So because we learn, then we have the sense of shame. Right? They say, of course, we talk about shame, not in many forms of shame, right? Of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we learn, we feel ashamed to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because we learn, we feel ashamed not to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this shame is brought forth by studying Allah's blessings and sensing one's own inadequacy in being grateful for them. So Allah gives us Lord, Allah, our gratitude is in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When shame restrains the soul from disgraceful acts and other shortcomings, it is a praiseworthy trait. So that is good shame is to prevent you from doing evil things. When shame goes beyond its reasonable bounds and takes a person into disarray and confusion, and his soul withdraws from doing something that one should not be ashamed to do, it is blameworthy trait. We did give examples of that, like you are ashamed to hold your father's hand because he doesn't look so handsome, or he looks so haggard, or whatever, or you're ashamed to stop work and go and pray because people will think you are trying to be so pious, whatever. And the shame that prevents you to do good. All right, we continue. The Muslim woman's shame. All right. The Muslim woman adorns herself with shame. This is shyness, and partakes with a man in developing the earth and raising generations upon the purity of a sound female disposition. So he's talking about a woman who adorns herself with shame. When you talk about adorning yourself with shame, that means being in a state of shyness and proper is actually a beauty to a woman. So it's like you adorn yourself, you want to beautify yourself, right? So this sense of shyness and shame is actually a quality of beauty for a woman. And with that sense of shame and shyness, right, she goes on in life working with a man to develop the earth and raise generations upon the purity of a sound female disposition. All right, so she brings up her children with her own sense of shame, shyness. She's very proper in her akhlaq, proper in the words that she uses. She's very gentle. She is not boisterous. She's not ugly in her words, and that brings about, right, the raising of generations. The Noble Quran indicates this when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about one of the daughters of Shu'aib when she came to invite Musa alayhi salam. فَجَاءَتْهُ إِهْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ قَالَتْ إِنَّ أَبِي يَدْعُوكَ لِيَجْزِيَكَ أَجْرَ مَا سَقَيْتَ لَنَا. All right. Here we see the word haya. Haya is shame. Then look at the translation. One of them came walking shyly up to him and said, "My father invites you so that he may pay you your wage for drawing water for us." All right, those who are not familiar with this story, because what happens was that Nabi Musa alayhi salam, after he killed an Egyptian, accidentally killed an Egyptian, as we are aware, Nabi Musa alayhi salam is a very strong person, right? So one morning, it was mentioned in the Quran that it was time of duha. The time of duha, where people are resting, it's really a hot time, right? People are resting, and there's hardly anybody in the vicinity. So Nabi Musa saw an Egyptian fighting with an Israelite. So we are aware Nabi Musa was an Israelite, right? Bani Israel or Bani Israel. So Nabi Musa alayhi salam, the Israelite called on Nabi Musa to help him against the Egyptian. So Nabi Musa, without thinking, gave the Egyptian one box, and the Egyptian fell dead. Because that's how strong Nabi Musa was. So the next day, the same Israelite was also quarreling, and he called Nabi Musa to help. So Nabi Musa, of course, after he punched the man dead, he was very remorseful. He realized that this is the works of the shaitan, and he should have not, straight away reacted impulsively. So the next day, the same man was there, and Nabi Musa came out walking stealthily, and the same man was there, and the man was calling him again. Nabi Musa, by now, right, was very wary of this man, realizing that this man is a quarrelsome man, right, and he didn't want to get involved with what the man was doing. At the same time, a friend of Nabi Musa, who was from the palace, some say his name is Haikal, he actually came to Nabi Musa and warned Nabi Musa about the fact that Fir'aun heard about him killing an Egyptian, and so they want to kill him. So Nabi Musa ran away from Egypt, and in his wanderings, right, he reached Madain. Madain is a place where Nabi Shu'aib was, and he saw these two girls standing far away from a number of shepherds which were giving water to their sheep. So he approached them and asked them why aren't they giving water to their sheep. And they said that their father was old and that they have to wait their turn before they can wait until all the men goes off before they can water the sheep. Now, of course, as ladies, they don't rush. These are shy people, prim and proper ladies. She don't rush and fight with the man to get water and things like that, or start shouting and insisting on their rights and whatever. So they just set aside. Nabi Musa alayhi salam took their sheep and offered to help them water their sheep. Water their sheep means not to put water on the sheep, to give the sheep water lah. So when they went back and told their father Nabi Shu'aib, Nabi Shu'aib asked one of the girls to go over to Nabi Musa to see Nabi Musa alayhi salam. So here is a story where she was very shyly went to Nabi Musa alayhi salam. And the story goes on also that when Nabi Musa moved off, right, she walked from behind him, because Nabi Musa asked her to walk behind, not to walk in front, because it's just not proper that a woman walks in front and a man walks behind, because the shape of the woman and everything, just for some feelings in a man. So a proper man will not walk behind a woman. A proper man would allow a woman to walk behind them. And the woman also feel good that they are behind the man. That's why we also play behind the man. Right? And not have, that's why some people who are insisting on, freedom or fair treatment, men and women must pray all together. There are some groups who does that. Women become the imam and this and that. These are all people who doesn't understand the reality of being shy, the reality of being all right, anyway. So she came with a command from her father, walking like a pure, clean, chaste young woman when she meets men, right? Pure, clean, chaste young woman, right? Not outspoken, not forceful, not I'm the woman who you should look up to, that kind of thing, So she was there going to him in a very, 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 very shy manner. There was no display of vulgar manners, no adornment of herself, no flaunting, and no enticements. That's what they call a proper woman with sense of shyness. All right, you don't speak out, you don't you're not boisterous, you don't decorate yourself to entice people, you don't flaunt your assets, as they say nowadays, let's flaunt our assets, and you don't entice men by your way you walk or the way you talk. In addition to manifest shyness in her walk, she spoke clearly and accurately without any stammering or stuttering, so that he even identified that part where she just gets to the point. Right? My father has called you over to reward you for your good in watering our sheep. This is part of natural, sound, clean, upright shame. So that in itself is also considered as shame, because she is not like being cheeky kind of thing, or smiling, go to the man, hello, trying to say things and things like that. Just direct to the point. That's what it is called shame. An upright young woman is naturally shy when meeting men and talking to them. But due to her purity and uprightness, she does not become uneasy. Unease that entices and arouses desire. So sometimes he's saying, he's from a man's point of view, we women should know that men sees things differently from women also, and the men out there can also maybe enlighten some of us if there is a need to. That it seems that when a woman is feeling uneasy, feeling no confidence, right? Man actually finds that enticing, because he sees a submissive, not somebody who is strong. There is strength in the way she speaks, right? Her purity and uprightness, she does not become uneasy, because unease entices and arouses desires. That's what he's saying, right? Rather, she speaks clearly and says no more than is necessary. So that's true shyness. You just go to the point and that's it. The Quran also tells us, a woman, when you talk to men, the Quran never ever says don't talk to men. Some people have this opinion that the voice of a woman is aurat. So when you say the voice of the woman is aurat, it has to be concealed, which means you cannot talk to men. But the Quran never say that. The Quran say, when you talk to men, don't speak in soft, sweet tones that entices the man, right? And make it as if you need to be not to have that sense of being low, or you need to, because the man need to be respected, to be honored, that kind of thing, that kind of thing. No. We don't do that. We just go straight to the point and say what we want to say. So the Quran tells us to talk properly and direct, and not with sweet voices, right, to entice men. As for the woman who in the past was described as a salfa'ah, constantly going in and out, in our time she's described as acting like a man, being unveiled, adorning herself, mixing with foreign men when there is no legislated need. So these are people who are not, this does not result from the school of the Quran and Islam. So he says that the Quran doesn't teach women to be like that. I want to be like the man. I must be able to do this, do that, do this, and I'm too sure that I'm strong, I'm powerful. I don't want to be submissive. I don't want to cover myself up, because covering is an oppression on me. But strangely, she wants to adorn herself. Right. Adorning yourself, in some sense, can be seen as trying to attract men. Many men, although some women deny that, no, I adorn myself because I want to look pretty, but men sees it as trying to attract them, an insecurity in some sense, that you need to powder up, you need to have red lips, you need to have eyelashes, long eyelashes, so that you look enticing and you look pretty and different. And no reason to be talking to men when there is no good reason. That's what he's saying. Foreign men, that means foreign men is understood, not foreigners. That means men who are non-mahram. She has exchanged shame and obedience to Allah the Exalted for insolence, disobedience, and immorality. And she carries out what Allah's enemies want for her, which is ruin and destruction in this life and the hereafter. Right, the enemies of Allah will be the shaitans among the jinns and among mankind, who encourages women on, right? Who says, yes, you should be out there, right? Not in the houses. The house is not as a place of submission, it's a place of oppression, it's a place of, no, you can do more than that kind of thing. But of course, women cannot go out. They can go out, but they must always have some kind of comportment, some kind of, and of course, ahlak is there, manners is there, the way you speak is there. It shows that you are a true woman. Not rude and obnoxious, and not showing that you are capable of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and exhibit immoral behavior. All that's not a woman. That's how it is. But it will bring ruin and destruction in this life and the hereafter. All right, we'll take a stop. We'll stop for a while, take a break here, and we'll come back inshallah in 10 minutes.
Through that hand which held the hand, there is this spiritual electricity whose power you feel at the time of bay'at. If you talk to somebody about how they feel after this bay'at, they will tell you extraordinary things about how they always found they could wake up for the Fajr prayer without an alarm clock. It's just extraordinary. It affects different people in different ways, but it's like turning on the electricity. Put the plug in the wall, but the bay'at is turning on the current. And this has been found to be the case by the great ulama, fuqaha, awliya, sada of Islam since the earliest times. So this seems to be the rule, the hand that holds the hand that holds the hand, but in this case, it's a spiritual transmission from Abdul Khaliq. How does that work? Well, we know that it did work because he gets this zikri khafi principle from him. To this day, most of the Naqshbandiya in the world follow this unspoken, silent dhikr. That was the way of Abdul Khaliq when he was given the meaning of the verse وَادْعُ رَبَّكَ تَضَرُّعًا وَخُفْيَةً in the Quran. Call upon your Lord in humbleness and secretly or silently. And some of the Naqshbandiya will have the jahri dhikr. In some cultures and some contexts, that's effective. But the way of Naqshband Hazrat was this silent dhikr. Very impressive, just silence, khamush. And so he receives this from Maulana Abdul Khaliq. Now, what does this mean for us today? Well, it means in an age in which we may not have access very easily to the great ones. Where are the Khawaja gone today? Probably under the ground. How do we benefit if we want the way of ruh, not the way of nafs? If we want the way of service to others, not the way of service to the self? If we long to go back to the time of alastu bi rabbikum, if we have this normal human impulse to live for the spirit, where do we go at this time? Where everybody's on their phones and everybody is distracted and everybody is unhappy and nobody remembers and nobody is centered and society is suffering, the environment is suffering, it's a broken time. How do we go back to that? Well, there are ways that cannot be set forth in books, but many people, when you speak to them, will say yes. They feel that, for instance, the Ihya Ulumuddin of Imam Ghazali. People will say, I can't find a sheikh, a murshid, appear in our time, but I find this book to be like a murshid. They say, Al-Ihya'u shaykhu man la shaykha la. The Ihya is the sheikh of the one who has no sheikh. And again, there's a mystery here. There's something between the lines that's shining that connects us somehow to the personality and to the guidance and the inayat of the great Imam Hujjat al-Islam, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. There's certainly a mystery in this. And this does not excuse us the duty of finding a living sheikh. That's better. But still, we should not despair. Deme aşk içre kim eder erşadi tariq, sen eman yoluna gir, Allah veliyut tawfiq. Ottomans used to say this. Do not say, who will guide me on this path of love? You yourself should enter it, and Allah is the wali of tawfiq. He is the one who gives success. Don't use the absence of the shuyukh as an excuse for not bothering. Allah is always al-Qarib, He's always the near. He's always al-Wali, always the protecting friend. Whenever you feel yourself inclined to leave ego and to find spirit, wherever you recognize beauty, wherever you feel peace in your heart, there you're on the path. Little baby steps maybe, but you're on the path. The path that goes up, not the path that goes down. So this Uwaisilik, this Uwaisi Meshrab is important in our age for very many people and a very effective thing, a way in which we can be connected to the hearts of the great ones of this ummah. Another thing that he tells us is not to waste time. He uses the language of wuquf zamani. There is wuquf zamani, there's wuquf adadi, wuquf qalbi. These are three technical terms that they use in the medicine chest of human illnesses. And wuquf zamani means to be aware of the passage of time. Don't waste time. What time of day is it? How have I used my time this day? How will I use my time for the rest of this day? Because the lower self wants us to kill time, to waste time, to fritter it away. The higher self knows that every breath is a capital that diminishes. Sarmaye Umr, capital of the life. Certain amount of days that you've been given, and they always go down and never go up again. They diminish, so watch out. Carpe diem. Be attentive to the time. This in our age of distraction, when so many huge entertainment corporations are making inconceivable mountains of money out of people's desire to be distracted and to ignore even basic family tasks, just through entertainment, just through foolish games. This doesn't mean that we can't be entertained, that we can't play games. Ours is the way of balance. But when it's too much, it's bad for the soul, it's bad for the brain, it's bad for our lives, because most of those things are a wasting of time. So this is important as well, to be aware of time, to stand with the time, as he puts it. To think at the end of each day, how have I used my time? To think at the beginning of the day, even if briefly and informally, what am I going to be doing today and what are the priorities that I should have? Let me do the important things first, not the easy things first. This is part of a basic discipline that even outside the religious world is something that is going to help you towards success. But we want it to help us in this transcendence. So we move from the world of instinct and desire to the world of love. Not to the world of harsh duty, it's the world of love. It's beauty up there. Beauty is from above, not from below. It's from the ruh, not from the nafs. So this is important as well. So all of these lessons seem to be kind of perennial. But the one that I was alluding to earlier, which I find particularly striking, part of his Ravandagan, his wayfaring, this difficult path of overcoming ego, was that one of his teachers said, for the next few years, you must seek out the sick and the broken-hearted, and you must run errands for them, and you must be with them. Be with them as they die. Visit them when they're sick. If they have problems and issues, go to them, see if you can help them with their problems and issues, and always look for the weakest of the people. And this is, of course, the prophetic way. Look for the weak, be with the weak, serve the weak. And then after this period of time was gone, he was then told to serve the animals, the street dogs in particular of Bukhara. We still have them. The taxi this morning almost crashed because a dog ran across the road. It's perennial. And generally we think these are kind of dirty, hopeless animals. Perhaps the police will shoot them. But what Naqshband Hazrat is told is to be their servant. If they're wounded, clean their wounds and bandage their wounds. If they're hungry, feed them. Be the servant of the dogs of Bukhara. Very hard for the ego, the nafs. Everybody's going to laugh at him. He's somebody from a noble family who is looking after these dirty street dogs. And then his teacher says there'll be one of them who will give you a great gift, and you should look for that one dog in Bukhara. And Naqshband Hazrat says, one day I found this dog and I thought there was a special understanding between me and the dog. And then the dog looked at me, rolled over on its back, started waving its legs, and started barking or howling and doing a kind of dog sound. And because of the overcoming of his ego and because of his love for Allah's creatures, Naqshband Hazrat says, Ameen, Ameen. As if the dog is making a dua, his paws in the air. Naqshband Hazrat says, Ameen. And he says, at that moment, I was granted the opening, the fath. And I saw myself at one with all creatures. And I saw the divine nearness in all creatures. And that everything is the divine names, busy, shining. These are words. What was his experience? We know he dedicated the rest of his life to looking for the broken.
Right. I didn't want to stop at the story of the dog, so I suppose most of you would like to listen to the story of the dog and complete the story of the dog. Very interesting story, actually. And this is what Murad is actually explaining the path of the Naqshbandis. Naqshbandi is also another group of, we call tariqat. They have a path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were trained. So you can see that how the training was for this Naqshbandi by his teacher. And he had to go through removal of the ego, killing the ego, and purifying of the soul. I will continue. All right. We mentioned just now shame for women, right? And not much is actually taught about the shame for men. Actually, in Islam, men and women should not dress up, so much so that your shape of your body is seen. It is part of shyness not to want to show your shape of your body, especially for women, very shapely, everything, can see the curves and everything. A woman who is shy, blessed with shyness, would not want to show off the curves of her body. Likewise, the men also, because men also, as we know, aurat of men is from the navel to the knee. right? Men can go around topless, but they must make sure their knee is covered. There's a difference of opinion. Some say above the knee, some say below the knee, all this. But the thighs, most schools would say the thigh is not permitted to be seen. And of course, mostly men, they used to wear the thawb or the jubah, right? So they cannot see the shape of the body. And if you go to Pakistan, they've got their kurtas, which also covers the front part and the back part. And so it is not shaped to sin. That is why modern day dressing, or Western dressing, where men tucked in and have tight pants, actually, if a person is shy, they wouldn't want to wear tight pants like that, because sometimes it does show their private part. I mean, the shape of their curves, which can distract some people also. And out of shame, you would not want to do that. For both men and women is there. Of course, shame in men also in the way they speak. The manners are very important. The akhlaq is very important, because if you are, it's all part of shame, because you wouldn't want to be boisterous and screaming and shouting and everything. That's not proper in Islam in itself, whether man or woman, right? You should speak, to the point and be strict about things, and not that you are boring and strict, but you have dignity. It's very important to have some kind of sense of dignity, and so people have respect for you. All right, let's look at the fruits of shame. The fruits of shame include virtuousness. So whoever is characterized by shame such that it governs all of his actions will be virtuous by nature, not by choice. So that is what it is. When you have sense of shame, you would be virtuous by nature, right? So whoever is characterized by shame such that it governs all of his actions will be virtuous by nature, not by choice, right? So when you have that shame in you, then you are considered as a virtuous person. Its fruits also include fidelity, obedience. Al-Ahnaf Ibn Qais said two things are never combined in one person: lying and respectability. A person who's respectable do not lie. A liar will not be respectable. Respectability has its own fruits: truthfulness, right? That means when you have a sense of respectability in you, you'll be truthful. Obedience, fidelity, shame, and virtuousness. This one comes from respectability. A respectable person definitely has sense of shame, has virtue in him, right? And of course, truthful and fidelity. The opposite of shame. The opposite of shame is insolence, rudeness, which is a blameworthy attribute, because the person who bears it will be immersed in evil and not care about any blame or censure that he receives until he declares his wickedness openly. So he's so rude, he's so obnoxious. People tell him he shouldn't be like that. He doesn't care. People, remind him, reprimand him. He doesn't care. He's not interested, right? And then he declares his wickedness openly. So that is what it is. Rudeness is not part of Islam. A person who's rude, who says all the bad words, who uses the bad words, who uses the four-letter words, has got no sense of shame. No akhlaq, no shame. He said, my entire ummah is excused, apart from those who declare their wickedness openly. Wickedness is open disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sins people do commit, but people who commit sins openly, and it shows they have no sense of shame whatsoever. When you have a sense of shame, you commit sin, but behind closed doors. You do commit sin. That means you still have not reached that stage of having that sense of shame in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because behind closed doors, nobody sees you, fine, but Allah sees you. But at least you have a sense of shame. That is why Allah has an excuse. Is excused. That means they can be given an excuse that they still have some sense of shame, that they do not declare their wickedness or their disobedience to the public. Those who brag about their sins that they commit, these are people who have got no sense of shame. That is why, even in zina, I've mentioned this a number of times, zina behind closed doors, right, is not punishable by the ruling of Islam, because that person has some sense of shame. The zina that is punishable by the ruling of Islam is that you do it in the open, where 4 people can see you doing in the act. That means you do it in public. Zina in public, open space, doing it, people to see. That definitely has to be punished, because if that is not punished, then society will be corrupt. Why? Because you have allowed such indecencies, such immoral acts to be shown in public without any sense of anger towards such things. So the punishment is to tell people such immoral acts should not be done in public. This is the punishment. It is why Rasulullah is always very reluctant to punish people who come forth to admit that they have committed fornication. Because fornication behind closed doors are not to be punished unless you openly declare your fornication. That's when punishment has to be meted out. Okay? And it's why people nowadays, there are groups of people, Muslims, who declare their tendency, their sexual tendency, their LGBT tendencies. In fact, there was a person from the Islamic background also who started off an LGBT group of Muslims. What do we mean by big LGBT group? People are shy if they have that tendency. A man interested in a man, he keeps it to himself, right? And he works around it. He has a weakness, no doubt, but he doesn't announce his weakness to people, because he feels shy to tell people that I am like that. So he keeps to himself. He seeks Allah's help to help him through these tendencies, which is not natural. And Allah has helped many a person who are of that state. Many of them are of that state, right? But they don't go out to announce their sexual orientation, as they call it. When someone has no shame before Allah or before people, there is nothing to restrain them from their ignorance, apart from severe punishment and possible seizure. Now here the word ignorance, as mentioned again, to be reminded, ignorance is not something that you can be excused by, right? As mentioned, ignorance is not salvation. You must know, you must learn, right? People who, the word jahil means people who does not have a true knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you don't have a true knowledge and understanding of who your God is, that is when you're able to disobey your God. That is what we call jahil, right? Those who doesn't have that kind of wisdom to understand the importance of obedience to their God. So these kind of actions done by people, they need to be punished severely and to be forced against doing such acts of disobedience. As there are people who fear and have no shame, which is nothing strange, because insolence and abandon of one's sound human disposition. Right? They have no shame in doing things because they are this is insolence, is rudeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in not giving him the honor and the respect due to him. And that rudeness is when you abandon your true human disposition. The obligation of parents and educators. In a Muslim community, the obligation of parents and educators is to strive diligently towards reviving the trait of shame and to follow tried and tested educational methods in doing so. That's what it is, right? Teach them from young the sense of shame, sense of shyness, that young girls, boys and girls also, when they see, don't show off their parts, and cover up certain parts of their body and talk nicely, don't scream and shout and behave in such such an unruly manner in public. So these are parts of ahlak that should be taught to them. These methods should include the supervision of the actions and behaviors of the children, and whatever contradicts the virtue of shame should be rectified. At the same time, the problem here is that parents might want children to have certain manners, but they themselves don't have that manners. And they disturb, they tease the children, and the children become rude towards them because they're teasing. And we need to be very careful on how we behave as parents and educators so that the children will see us as people whom they can emulate, people whom they can look up at. Right? Rasulullah is the best model of great good behavior, and that is why his dignity, his comportment, his ahlak, his speech, everything we can learn from that. It's a stories of Rasulullah, some stories of awliya, stories of beautiful souls, stories of sahabas and sahabiyas, all should be told to our youngsters when they are young so that they understand the meaning of shame and shyness. They should be taught how to keep righteous company and avoid bad company, and shown how to choose beneficial books and avoid corruptive films, comical plays, and vulgar speech. You see that in TV shows, vulgarity is rife, and people use bad words, swear words, curse words. But when you are with righteous people, you tend to follow their ways. Right? I remember a man, his name is Ali, I'm not sure he's still alive or not. Alas bin Zaini, his name actually. He used to live in Tanjung area. And he used to play with the Malay boys down there, football, whatever. And he says that he became a Muslim because his friends, every time the azan is called, they would all rush to the mosque. And that attracted him to Islam. And he said that when he converted, he called himself alias bin Zaini. Zaini, if I remember his name correctly. And the Zaini was supposed to be his father's name because he aimed at converting his father. And eventually the father converted and he named his father Zaini. His Wadarul Arkam, I heard his story. So he was with boys, Muslim boys who were not ashamed to go out and pray in the mosque at the time of azan. And inshallah, their ahlak also helped him through. All right. The hadith informs us that shame in its entirety is good. Whoever has a lot of shame will have a lot of good. Whoever has a little shame will have little good. There is no shame in teaching the rulings of the religion and no shame in seeking the truth. And we should not be ashamed to find out about the religion. We shouldn't always say things like, oh, if I know that I cannot do. If you are a wise person, you want to know because you want to know what Allah teacher taught you, and you want to be people of true faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And no shame in seeking the truth. Always seek the truth. The exalted one has said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, Wallahu la yastahi min al-haq. Allah, He is not ashamed of the truth. So tell the truth and not be ashamed of the truth. And the translation is, but Allah is not reticent with the truth. I find the word reticent quite difficult to understand. The word is yastahi, not ashamed. Not ashamed of the truth. He will tell you the truth so that you will learn the truth and find out more about the truth. All right, so that's shame. We finished the hadith on shame. So we are halfway through the book of Imam Nawawi. We're not going to rush through, we just inshallah take our time and try to assimilate as much as possible and live by the hadith that Imam Nawawi has specifically chosen for us to live by. All right, we continue with surah Fussilat. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We were at verses 20 to 21 in the last lesson. When they come to it, their ears, their eyes, and their skins shall witness against them for what they did. This is in the hellfire, where their eyes and the ears and the eyes and skins will tell all. They will ask the skins, why bear witness against them? The skins will say that Allah has made them speak. So that's the reality of the next one. He created them at first, and to him they shall return. This is a reminder for all. Allah created us, and we will return to him. Let's remember that. One day we will be in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will be ashamed of the things that we did, which was in rejection of the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in defiance of the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, we continue. وَمَا كُنْتُمْ, and not you were, tastatirun, concealing, ayyashhada, so that bear witness, alaykum, on you, sam'ukum, your hearing, wala absarukum, and not your sight, wala juludukum, and not your skins. We'll look at the meaning later on. Walakin, but dhanantum, you thought, annallaha, that Allah, la ya'lamu, not he knows, kathiran, most, mimma, of what, ta'malun, you do. And you did not veil yourselves, or else your ears and your eyes and your skin should bear witness against you. But you thought that Allah did not know most of what you did. So there's a few things here, right? And you did not veil yourself. وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَتِرُونَ, and not you were those, you veil yourself. Tastatiruna from the word sitar. Sitar means to cover. It's a covering. Sitar. Sitra is covering. So, and not you were covering yourself, that bore witness against you, your hearing, and not your sight, and not your skin. So what does it mean? Allah is telling these people in the hellfire, right? As their skin bear witness against them, as their eyes bore witness against them, and their ears bear witness against them, right? The reality is that when you committed all the sins in the world, you did not cover your eyes. You did not cover your ears. You did not cover your skin, so much so that they are witness to what you did. That's what it means. You were not covering that, so much so that you did not cover yourself, that causes your eyes, your ears, your eyes, your sight, and your skin to bear witness against you. When in the world you hit yourself while committing crime, you never thought that your ears and your eyes and your own skins would ever bear witness against you. Right? As you mentioned, right? Some people, they are shy to commit sin in public, but they are not shy to commit sin in private. But then again, in private, you forget that your eyes are witnesses to you, your hands are witnesses to you, your skins are witnesses to you. They see what you did, and you didn't hide yourself from them. A.J. Abri says, not so did you cover yourselves, that your hearing, your eyes, and your skin should not bear witness against you. This is a translation I've mentioned here from the translation here. When in the world you hit yourselves while committing crime. So here, of course, it's not only a translation, but a further explanation. Because as we see, the Arabic here might not be very clear for many, as mentioned, and not you were covering yourselves, that witnesses against you, your hearing and your sight and your skins. Right? So Ajabri says, not so did you cover yourselves. So you didn't cover yourselves so much so that your hearing, your eyes, and your skin should not bear witness against you. Actually, here that he also explains in some sense, because here is that such that your skin and your ears and your eyes, your skin and your ears and your eyes would bear witness against you. There is no not here. All right. Next one. This raises an objection against disbelievers that they may not conceal anything, since their bodily organs like ears, eyes, and skins bear witness against them on the day of resurrection. So That's what it is. You can't conceal all your acts against your own bodily parts. The organs and skill will say to them, and when they blame them for testifying against them, you did not hide us from what you used to do. On the contrary, you openly committed disbelief and sin. So these parts of the body will say, you didn't hide yourself. How can they hide themselves? Right? So in that sense, they should avoid committing sins so that their skin, their eyes, and their ears will not be a witness against them. And these eyes and the skin and the ears, right, were made to talk by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and were made to say the truth. And they cannot hide what is the truth of what they see while they are parts of the body of the human being. And you claim you did not care, right? You say you don't care, but you didn't realize that we are the ones witnessing you and we have to testify against you because Allah gave us the ability to speak. وَلَكِنْ ظَنَنْتُمْ, but you thought أَنَّ اللَّهَ, that Allah, لَا يَعْلَمُ, not He knows, كَثِيرًا مِمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ, most of what you do. So that is the reality of you. You are so ignorant of the powers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of the abilities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you allow yourself to disobey Allah, thinking that Allah doesn't know what you do. So now Allah is bringing forth your own parts of your body to witness against you. And of course, your thoughts that Allah doesn't know is of course absurd because Allah knows every single thing that you do. But in being fair to you, or else you will say if Allah just comes around and say, oh, you did this, and you say, what proof have you got? Human beings are like that with Allah. Also, they want to argue, right? And Rasulullah has mentioned that in the next one, in Surah Al-Baqarah, in Surah Yasin, right, when the human being will come forth and say, what proof have you got that I did all these things? I don't want any other proof but myself. So they were so arrogant in the next world, was so arrogant. And Rasulullah smiled, a very wide smile, because he says, you yourself will be a witness against you. Okay? Allah says, وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُمْ وَكَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ, and whatever they were earning. إِصْلَوْهَا الْيَوْمَ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْفُرُونَ الْيَوْمَ نَخْتِمُ عَلَى أَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَتُكَلِّمُنَا أَيْدِيهِمْ. On that day, we will cover your mouth and your mouth, your hands will talk and your legs will bear witness. That's another part of the body being mentioned in Surah Yasin. Here, Allah is mentioning your eyes, your ears, and your skin will tell about you. Why? Because you don't think that Allah knows. They will also make them realize that the core reason of their infractions was their skepticism, that they will be returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that He will be holding them accountable for every evil move they made in the world. So they will be questioned, they will be shown whatever they did. Their books also, they are being reminded that there are angels left and right to write down good, left and right, left to write down evil, and right to write down good. Right? And they will be accountable for every single thing that they do. They didn't think Allah knew, but Allah brings forth proofs in yourself, in the angels with their books of records, and the books of records will be sent to you. You'll receive it if you are good in your right hand. That is why remember to dua that you get your books in your right hand when you do your wudu. Remember to dua that you don't get your books in your left hand when you do your wudu. Right? And believe that is the next. So they don't want to believe that, and so they do whatever they want to do. This was also because they doubted Allah's power to know every action of all humanity and to produce all kinds of evidence against those who disobey Him. They would say, how is Allah to know? This world is so big. At that time, they didn't know that the world was a globe. Whereas nowadays, we see the whole globe, billions of people. How can Allah know every single action of billions of people? Because you don't know Allah, you don't understand the greatness and the powers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the infiniteness of the sight of Allah, the infiniteness of the hearing of Allah. You doubt Allah's power. And that is why you are able to give excuses, right, in doing whatever you are doing, believing that Allah will not see you because the world is so vast, there's billions of people around, how to see every single one. Had they been convinced of these realities, they would not have disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the reality. If you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means somehow, right, as Imam Ghazali has said, right, you don't have that strong belief in accountability in the next world. And some people actually says, oh, it's okay, Allah is forgiving. Yeah, Allah is forgiving, but Allah is also fair. That is why we have Maliki. Allah says, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim is most gracious, most merciful. Maliki Yawmiddin, he is the king of the day of judgment. That means as a king, there is day of judgment, he will be judged according to your actions, and he will preside over you. He will be the judge who will decide whether you are right or wrong. The lack of faith caused them to disobey their Rabb and thus ruined them and made them utter losers. The same theme as the Prophet ﷺ expressed in a comprehensive and brief hadith thus: Ya Rabb says, I am with the thoughts and conjecture that my slave holds of me. That means I know what they think and I know what they assume of me. وَذَلِكُمْ, and that's for you all. ظَنُّكُمْ, dhan is assumption, guesses, and things like that. Your assumption, like husnul zan, good thoughts, good assumptions. Su'ul zan, bad assumptions. Alladhi, which dhanantum, you thoughts, bi rabbikum, of your Rabb. Ardakum, it ruined you. فَأَصْبَحَتُمْ, then you become minal khasirin, of the losers. We mentioned that in the previous part also. وَذَلِكُمْ ظَنُّكُمُ الَّذِي ظَنَنْتُمْ بِرَبِّكُمْ أَرْدَاكُمْ فَأَصْبَحَتُمْ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. So that Ibn Abbas, concerning the occasion of revelation of the verses, said, so that you thought that, right? And that is what you thought. Your assumption that you thought of your Rabb. One day, I have covered my face in the Kaaba covering when 3 persons approached: Safwan from Rabi'ah, Umayyah, and Abdullah Thaqafi. One of them said, may Allah hear what we say. Another one replied, if we speak loudly, he will hear us. The other said, if he hears our loud speech, he may hear our whispers. This is what conversation about how they think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I went to the Prophet and quoted their words. Then the verse was revealed to remove such baseless suspicion. So one thing this way, another one thing this way, another one thing this way. Allah is all knowing, Allah is all hearing. Aradakum fa'asbahatum. So the verse was revealed to remind people of the things that they think about Allah. Right? Allah knows whatever they think about Allah. Ardakum, right, destroyed you, it destroyed you, fa'asbahatum, and then you become minal khasirin, of the losers. Allah Almighty is omniscient and omnipotent, and such groundless suspicions against Allah led to their perdition, their destruction, and they become utter losers. Those who have thoughts of Allah which are wrong thoughts of Allah, they deceive themselves and they move into disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because of their disobedience to Allah, they will lose. Right? They become of the losers, khasirin, those who are continuously in a state of loss. Ardakum fa'asbahatum minal khasirin. Finally, mention will be made of their thought towards Almighty Allah and suspicion against Him. So this is what Allah will say eventually. This is what it is. You destroy yourself because of the things that you think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is not right. You think Allah cannot hear, you think Allah cannot see, you think Allah doesn't know, you think Allah is not fair, you think all kinds of things about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The above verses clearly indicates that suspicion against Allah Almighty is so perilous that it may lead to perdition and everlasting torment. Instead, entertaining fair thought about Allah Almighty leads to deliverance in this world and hereafter. So you think good of Allah, we are taught to think good of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if life doesn't seem to be good for you, things are happening as if you know, why is all these things happening to me? Always believe in the wisdom and the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be content with what happens. Move on, being true slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we are taught to say when any tragedy happens in our life, any bad thing happens in our life, we are taught to say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilahi raji'un. Surely we are from Allah and we will return to Him, which means that I know I come from Allah and I will go back to Him. So I need to hold myself. I need to know how to move in life so that Allah is pleased with me, so that the time when I meet Him, I will be in a good state. According to Prophet's tradition, Prophet ﷺ, entertaining good thought about Allah is the best of devotions. Always have trust in Allah. Believe that whatever happens to you is for good and Allah will not make things bad for you. Make attempts to entertain fair thought about Allah, since it is the cause of paradise. You want to go to paradise? Think good of Allah. Imam Sadiq radiallahu anhu said, entertaining fair thoughts about Allah is that you do not set your hopes on anyone else and be solely afraid of your sins. But fear your sins, right? Because you have disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't hope on people helping you, hope on others helping you, hope on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Believe Allah is going to help you through any kind of situation. Musa ibn Ja'far, Imam Qasim Kadhim radiallahu anhu said, the good of this world and hereafter is solely due to believers' good thought about Allah and causes them to set their hopes on Him. So you want to have good in this world and good in the next world, then have good thoughts about Allah and set your hopes on Him. Right, we'll stop here today. It'll be quite long there. Allahumma anta rabbi. Wait, is this? Sorry, mistake. Bismillah. Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta khalaqtani wa ana abduka wa ana ala ahdika wa wa'dika mastata'tu a'udzu bika min syarri ma sana'tu abu'u laka bi ni'matika alayya wa abu'u bi dhanbi faghfirli innahu la yaghfiru dzunuba illa anta. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbana anfa'na bima 'allamtana. Rabbi 'allimna alladhi yanfa'una. Rabbi faqihna wa faqih ahlana wa qarabatin lana fi dinina ma'a ahlil qutri unsa wa dhakar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asri innal insana lafi khusr illa allazina amanu wa amilus solihat wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.